Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us, right here on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux, news reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you this week, joined as well by journalist, news reporter, change that up a little bit, Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you in here this week.
Good to be here once again and keeping warm in this nice, cozy studio. Well, a little deceptive background here. It looks a little chilly, much like it is outside, but inside the studio, nice and cozy.
Like we were saying, the Christmas motif we had there during the December editions of the show were really quite festive, nice and cheery. This one, not quite as variety in terms of the color base, but very much realistic for the weather that we've had as of late. We are just starting to break through a little bit of that below average temperatures that we had for Neepawa and the surrounding area. It's feeling a little more like a normal January, although I'm a little surprised that normal January weather is something I actually enjoy now compared to what we had. So,
yeah, it's as much as we maybe don't like it because it is cold. We do have that normal January weather now, and it really just sort of swept in the last few weeks. We had that big storm that came through over the spread of a few days, and we really did get a downpour of snow, the snow that we've been missing all throughout winter pretty much.
And that very much chill, even during the day, which segues kind of interestingly into our very first story we're going to be sharing with you in this week's edition of the newspaper. I always look on the front page and see what was interesting in the week that was. This week, the Neepawa Minor Hockey Tournament of Champions for the Adams, although they've changed the names a couple years ago, it's not Adam or Bantam or anything like that anymore, it's now U11. Still, old learning here, I still sort of call it Adams from time to time, but it's a huge event, a major tournament for Neepawa Minor Hockey that has become a tradition each and every January for the Yellowhead Center. I bring it up here as well, segueing from the weather, because I remember it started on Thursday last week, was planning on going to the Neepawa team's game Friday. Immediately after work, it was around 4:30 that it was going to be opening face-off for their second round robin game of that tournament. So I was going to go down there, get some pictures, get some information and all that. I went out, got to my vehicle, got in the car, turned the key. Well, that's not normal. That's not.
That does not bode well.
No. All right. Maybe pray a little bit. No. Maybe swear at the vehicle a little bit. You son of a. None of it worked. All my old tricks for getting the car started, none of it worked. Because unfortunately, I'd been in the office for about 8 to 9 hours straight. I hadn't gone out. I walked over to get some lunch nearby, so I didn't drive. I didn't drive anywhere, so I'd been sitting there for about 8.5, 9 hours, and it was so cold that the battery just decided, no, not this time, my old friend. So I ended up missing that game. By the time I was able to get jumper cables, because interestingly enough as well, Casper, I had an emergency set in the back that has all the little things, but, when you pay $30, $40 for an emergency set, you're not going to get high quality.
Right.
So I pulled out the chargers there, the clamps for the battery, and one of them snapped right off in my hand. I was like, okay, I guess it is cold. Fortunately, one of our co-workers here, KDF, had the industrial strength battery chargers and was able to give me a jump there. So much appreciated. So I was able to eventually get down to the Yellowhead Center and check out our hometown team, the Neepawa U11 Titans, at their home tournament. And for the first time since 2006, so this was well beyond since these youngsters were even around, they won their hometown tournament. Neepawa ended up coming out victorious at the Tournament of Champions, signing it all off with a victory over Swan Valley, last year's tournament winners, in the final. It was the A-side final, and they were able to come away with it. So congratulations to those youngsters. I had an opportunity as well to get a bunch of pictures. Some of them are in this week's paper, both on page 1 and a little bit of a collage, as you can see, and with the story on page 10. Also had a chance to speak with Landon Cameron, who is the head coach for that team, and Tara McCarty, who is she was the sort of chairperson for the organization of the tournament as well this year. Did it as well last year. So they were able to share some of the details. Landon was able to share how this team came together. It was sort of an amalgamation of a couple teams, so they didn't have much time to practice together. It came together quite nicely, though, and they really sort of put it all out there, out on the ice, and came away with a perfect weekend. Tara talked about all the challenges of having to deal with this type of weather because it was so cold, and trying to make it a fun, festive activities for not just the parents and the volunteers, but all the visiting teams as well, and their parents and all that came here. And they did a good job of it. Tournament of Champions really is one of those big ones each and every year that we try and put our best foot forward. And I think for the most part, they did that under some difficult circumstances. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about that, you won't find anything about my car troubles in the story. Don't worry about that. It's just going to be about the cold, hard facts of how good this team was this last weekend. You can find that on page 1, carries over on the page 10 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. And it was kind of strange as well, Casper, because I remember going into the arena for the final on Sunday and thinking to myself, God, it's warmer in here than it was outside, you know. It really was, you know, because anyone who's been to the Yellowhead knows historically it's one of the coolest arenas in Western Manitoba, literally.
Yeah, you really get a nice chill in there, don't you?
Yeah, but this time it was nice and toasty comparatively to the parking lot and the outside there. So, but it was great to be able to cover that each and every year we do it. It's great to be able to congratulate our own hometown team, the Neepawa U11 Titans, for coming away and winning the big one. All right, let's shift gears. We're going to go inside to a couple stories, some information that was sent our way. This first one is to do with some construction you've probably seen going on in the parking lot at Neepawa Gladstone Co-op Food Store right here in Neepawa. They've been installing some items, and they were unveiled recently, a week or two ago, to be a Tesla charging stations. Not just ordinary Tesla charging stations, though. They are superchargers. Now, that's not some cool superhero or a wrestling move. That's an actual sort of new piece of equipment that allows your electronic vehicle, or EV, we'll use the term EV, maybe moving ahead, to charge at a much more rapid pace. So they've got those set up, about a half dozen Tesla ones, and they don't just work for Teslas, though. In the media release that was sent to us, it also shared that it works for any type of EV, be it a Toyota, be it a Honda, any sort of different company that is putting these things together, which is good because, you know, unlike phones, you know, it's nice to have some uniformity with the charger there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite a struggle when things keep changing on you and the plugs don't match up. But no, with these, it's very universal. So I'm curious to see how much use they'll get. I actually don't know how many electric vehicles that we have in our area or that pass through town here. But it's nice to have this sort of improvement come to our town and help it grow.
I think it's going to be interesting. You bring up a good point there, Casper, because I think during the winter, for the most part, I don't think they're going to get much, if any usage at all. Anyone in Neepawa proper who has an EV most likely has the EV charging setup in their home. But come the spring, come the summer, and into the fall, when we have people passing through Neepawa, stopping in Neepawa for picking up groceries, maybe heading out to the lake, maybe heading out to the campground, heading up to Dauphin for something, heading up to Clear Lake for all sorts of fun and activities. I think they could see some uptake jump when it comes to that. We were talking as well just before the show, because I read this article online yesterday from, I think it was the Sun-Times out of Chicago that wrote the article. talking about how in Chicago right now they are having huge lineups at these types of supercharger and charging stations because of the cold that is occurring in Chicago. These types of things, they charge a little bit slower in extreme weather conditions. And in Chicago, unlike in Neepawa, a lot of more people live in apartments, those types of setups. So they don't have the ability or capability to charge their vehicle overnight in their own home because they don't have a home, they don't have a garage where they're able to do it. And the winter has really sort of hit the US hard, just like it's hit us. And the thought is that these types of superchargers, first off, do it at a much quicker pace. And secondly, they're a little more hardy for the elements. So it'll be interesting to see how this grows and develops over the years, because that's, let me get your take on this, Casper. That's the reality of it. I think ultimately by the year 2030 or 2035, I think they want to have just all electronic vehicles. And for me, this is my opinion. It's not the opinion of the Banner Press. It's not the opinion of NACTV. And it might not be your opinion. But the technology doesn't work in Canada just yet. It'll work in a city like Toronto or Montreal or Winnipeg, I think. But if you've got to go out large distances, I'm not sure if I feel safe with it just yet. But you still got another 6 years or maybe another 11 years to work out all the kinks. And hopefully they're going to be able to do that. Because when it comes to electronic vehicles, if it works, I would love to have one of those. But what about you, Casper?
No, for sure. I mean, it's definitely something that I'd like to see work. But again, we've talked about before the struggles that come with harsh climate that we do get in areas such as, well, Manitoba, where we are right now. And just where things currently are, that technology not being able to quite match up to the conditions that are present. So I would really like to see some more development going towards that to help improve those in order to tackle those challenges efficiently in a better sort of tier compared to where things are at right now. So I'm curious to see where that will go moving forward if any changes are made. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
It's kind of interesting as well because I read an article a couple weeks ago as well about EVs and the need for these types of charging stations in communities throughout Canada. They say on average, in order to meet the goals of early 2030s, we're going to have to be building about 41,000 charging stations across Canada every single year. Well, fortunately, we got 6 of those out of the way for 2024 now. And Neepawa did its part. Now, if you're wondering as well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler for the story that we wrote on this. It was in the media release. If you're wondering, oh God, why is Co-op giving away its space and giving away its energy, electricity in essence, for something like this? Well, don't worry. Calm down. Okay, calm down. That's not the case. They said very specifically that the Tesla is renting the space in which these stations are located, and none of the power is coming from the Co-op in any way, shape, or form. This is Tesla's deal with Manitoba Hydro. This is Tesla's deal with the Co-op. The Co-op is making money off of this endeavor, and I think great. And no matter what you think about electronic vehicles, EVs, whether they're useful, whether they're still got a lot of bugs to be worked out, it's good to see that this is an option for people who want to take that option. So we'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks, months, and years ahead right here. So if you do want to see that story, and you can find that on page 2 of this week's edition. Next to a story about a person who had some vehicle issues of their own, but it turned out a whole heck of a lot different from my vehicle issues earlier in the week. We got this report from St. Rose, RCMP. Thank you very much for the media release. We love to get this type of information and be able to share it with our readership and to share it with you right here on NACTV. It was up in St. Rose, the community proper. A couple days ago, there was a motorist that was having some major issues with their vehicle. Well, with a vehicle. They had a flat tire, and it was around 1-ish in the morning. So an officer our C&P officer saw what was happening and decided to be the good Samaritan, the good citizen, as it were, just to pull over. Hey, how you doing? You need some help with this. But that's where things sort of went off the rails, as it were, or off the road. It was a flat tire to a vehicle that didn't have any license plates on it. It was a flat tire for a person who didn't really have any ID or any registration or a driver's license. An individual who apparently, also Casper, gave a fake name. All of these, obviously, red lights, hold on, flag on the play. There's something not quite kosher about what's going on here. So.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting turn of events. I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like to roll up to go and help someone and then just like, this vehicle doesn't have any plates. They don't have any ID or registration. There's some suspicious stuff in the vehicle. And it just keeps going.
That's a good point, because the next thing is the suspicious stuff. Obviously, all of this warrants some discussion, and a search of the individual and the vehicle later on found that there was methamphetamines within the vehicle and cocaine on the individual. So that was kind of interesting. Methamphetamine, of course, is the new cool drug on the street, as it were. But cocaine's an old classic. Anybody who lived through the 80s, that's the old school stuff, from what I've heard. But again, it's wonderful that this circumstance was able to get some drugs off of our streets, because that's the reality of it. It's not just a big city issue. It's an issue that hinders and hurts every single community. As you can see, I mean, this was something that was occurring in St. Rose. So this person, they were able to finally, eventually track down this person's information and get some. The person was remanded into custody. If you want to find out a little bit more about this and some of the strange, unusual circumstances behind this arrest, you can find that story once again on page 2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Of course, always pick up a physical copy of the paper if you're able to in Neepawa and surrounding areas, including St. Rose. But if you're not able to get a physical version of the newspaper, always remember, every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time, we go live on our website, mywestman.ca. So don't forget, mywestman.ca. So that I couldn't even imagine something like that. -38, out in the middle of nowhere. You're up to no good, and then the police come up. What is the mindset on that? Because this person ended up having some injuries from the cold, but at the same time, nobody wants to get arrested.
No, for sure. No, it certainly is quite the story. And I guess in a way, I know we don't have it on our list, but it does roll into another story that we have pretty nicely. We did get something from Crime Stoppers, which does mention that there's been an increase in, I believe it was vehicle theft related incidences. And so just, I guess, take caution. I know there's only so much that we can do on our end, but if you see something happening or you have information about something, consider calling into Crime Stoppers and providing some tips.
That's right. That's a very good point, because we got that just as a press release. We weren't really going to talk about it that much in this week's episode of the show, but you can find that. It is on page 6 of this week's edition of the Banner Press, right next to Helen's recipe. Some very interesting numbers that Casper laid out there, and some intriguing things that, seem to be occurring this month. If I remember correctly, January is Crime Stoppers Month. If let me refresh my memory on that.
Crime Stoppers Month, yeah.
So they wanted to put out a special feature, sort of letting people know about what's what and how things are playing out there. So go and check that out as well. As you're going through the pages as well, hopefully you'll be able to see this thing. This is a story we covered back in December. And this is a story, a very similar story that we spoke on last week's edition of the Story Behind the Stories. Casper was able to do a great article on a business. I'm sorry, Casper. I forget the name of the business. Based out of Gladstone.
Yeah, based out of Gladstone. It's actually a
Um,
pair of businesses owned by the same person,
Right.
Sheldon Gold. There was a DJ service, I unfortunately can't remember the name of off the top of my head, and SNN lawn care service as
Oh,
well.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. Because right here in Neepawa, Frozen Fire Studios, just a little north of Neepawa, but Neepawa based, has also been honored with the Canadian Choice Award. Now, Canadian Choice Award, if you don't remember last week's story, or if you don't remember the story we did on Frozen Fire back in December, it is a national organization that commends and celebrates small to mid-size businesses in Canada. Now, Frozen Fire won in their category. It was a small business category for studios, and they were recognized for the work they do, not only as a recording and music studio, but also their outside endeavors within communities. So it's wonderful. I had a chance to speak with Jeff Descender, who is the owner and the operator of Frozen Fire, about this, and he was just thrilled because it was one of those awards that everyone had a piece of. They got about 5 members of their studio, 5 employees that work there. So it's a team effort, and this is a team award. So he was very happy to be able to share that with them and with the community. He said it's something that they hope the community of Neepawa will feel is something their own, something they can be proud of themselves. So I had a chance to speak with him on that, and you can find that story, on page 7 of this week's paper. Jeff I've known for a couple years now. We were both on the Neepawa Tourism Board for many years. He's very passionate about Neepawa, the community, showcasing it to anyone and everyone who will listen, really. So that's one of those individuals you're glad to see are part of your community, and glad to see that they see the value of your community and want to share it with everyone else. So congratulations to Jeff and everyone over at Frozen Fire Studios for this recognition. I think most definitely well deserved. We only got a few minutes left here, but I did, and we're going to have some time to talk about a couple other things, I think, Casper. But this is one you picked up on. I didn't even notice it, I got to be honest, until it was either yourself or Diane that mentioned it, was in regards to It's Time.
Yeah.
Business. Yes.
Yeah, Diane had caught that there was a new sign up in the window of It's Time. And I'm going to be working on putting together a full story once the individuals are available for interview. But It's Time is now officially closed. It held its last business day just last week, at the end of the week there, I believe on Saturday. And so now further preparations are being made for a new store owned by Lisa Adams to be started up in there in the same building, the Mill Lifestyle Store.
Now,
so
we had that story in December edition.
I
of the
believe
paper.
so, yeah. So yeah, it's officially closed now, and I'm curious to learn more about the upcoming business. I don't recall if I've seen any specific details on what exactly it's going to have in it, or is looking to have in it as time goes on and they're able to get prepared for that. But looking forward to learning more about that.
Most definitely. It's going to be known as Mill Lifestyle Store. Not quite sure what that means just yet, but that's going to be part of the intrigue, part of the mystery of this new business. And as Casper said, we're definitely going to chase down those details, a little bit of that information when it becomes more readily available to the public. There's so many other things we could talk about here right now, and so many things we're going to be preparing for next week's edition of the Banner Press, and obviously later on the story behind the stories. We've got one picture. Diane Warner was gracious enough to head down and check out Manitoba Ag Days for us when it was occurring there. We're going to have a full composite of all the different events and whatnot in a future edition of the Banner Press, mainly Neepawa business focused. That's what we try to do each and every year. Ag Days is so huge, so expansive that you can't do every single business because, then it'd be like 80 pages.
expansive it is. Like I mean, you've already sort of commented on how many businesses show up there to the expo, but it honestly is just like massive. I've been there once before with Kira when she was here, and John as well before he retired. And so Diane going out to this year, she was sending me texts a little here and there, just like, I don't think I've ever seen this room before. I'm like, yeah, it kind of just keeps going and going. Good luck, because it really is just like endless. There's so much to see there. It's a fantastic event.
Well, the thing is as well is, I haven't been there for a few years myself, but I remember when I was working for CKLQ, 880 CKLQ out of Brandon. I was working my first job there. I was an ag reporter for the station for about 3 years before they moved me to regular news. But every year I would have to do on locations from places like the Winter Fair, Agribition in Regina, and Manitoba Ag Days. And I always found, surprisingly enough, Manitoba Ag Days was one of the easier ones to get these sort of things done because it is so business oriented. There are companies and individuals and business owners who are more than willing to speak with you about what they do, what they bring to the agricultural table, as it were. So I used to have to do, it was about 6 live on locations every day while Ag Days was going on. And you just go in there and you try and track them down. It's like, that's the good thing about this job sometimes is whatever piques your interest, you can talk about. So I'd look at a business and be like, okay, that's kind of cool. Hey, I'm so-and-so. Do you want to talk about this for about 90 seconds? And some of them are obviously a little gun shy about going live on air. It's like, oh, no. But many of them were just more than accommodating. So it's a really friendly place where some important commerce in the ag industry is done each and every year. So we hope to share some of the details in a print version in a future edition of the Banner Press. Not only that, we've got a couple other stories based out of Carberry of interest. This one's a little unfortunate. That's why you're going to have to pick up the paper and see for yourself. Carberry Elks is unfortunately disbanded, but some good did come out of it because they were able to donate many important documents to the Carberry Plains Museum. So at least some of the history and the heritage of the Carberry Elks will continue to live on. The legacy of the Elks will continue on for future generations. Now you can find that story and other stories regarding Carberry in our paper, as well as updates on the Tiger Hills Hockey League and of course the Neepawa Titans. Now just a real quick shout out there. I didn't write a story proper on the Neepawa Titans this week, and that's because we had other commitments to other avenues, other news-related avenues. So if you're a little saddened or upset that we don't have a sports-related story on the Titans this week, it's just there's only so many hours in the day, and commitments have to be made towards more news-oriented things. Respectfully to sports, and I love sports, it's news and sports. So news is always the one, followed by sports. But don't worry, fortunately next week I'll be able to get out there and get a little more on location with some of these events going on. And if you have any of these that you'd like to share, like I said, we can't be everywhere. So if you're at an event and you see something, snap a picture for us or send us some information our way. We always do appreciate it. You can send it our way at news@neepawabanner.com, or you can give us a call at 476-3401. Give us a news tip on that. Always appreciated. So once again, Casper, great to have you here as always this week and shared some details. I know you're chasing down some really interesting stories that are going to be sort of within the next week or two.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get them chased down and hopefully share them by the time we go on the show again next week.
Most definitely. We've already got a few pages already filled up with 1 or 2 interesting little trinkets and a few more on the way. And that's why we appreciate you supporting us here at the Banner Press and right here at NAC TV each and every week at the story behind the stories. Hopefully you'll have yourself another great week. Thank you.